Hi, MRK here, back with another video. This time, again, something shorter, but something I really wanted to do for a long time, and I didn't find enough resources until now, and I actually understood what am I doing. So I am recording a video because it's not actually that hard, and it's super useful, and it should be part of the engine from the Blueprint side. Unfortunately, it's not, but it's quite easy to expose it to Blueprints. And what I'm talking about, of course, animated loading screens. And I am not talking about those bullshit loading screens like you can create a widget, add it to viewport, add a delay, so it shows like for 1 second, and then you open level by whatever, right? And it shows, but it freezes, of course, because the game thread is locked while it's loading. So it cannot actually run. So yeah, this is not this bullshit technique. I'm gonna show you the real technique, and I'm gonna show you, of course, well, not show you, I'm gonna include my sources in the description. It's been done on YouTube already, and there is a very nice site that documented this technique I'm gonna use. So I use those, but I also added my own twist that adds a little bit more customization to that basically tool, because this is a tool. So if I am not using this, then how did I achieve this effect, right? So I'm starting a map, and you see I have a loading screen, and I have a widget after the loading screen. And then, yeah, I'm loading it to the main map, click load warehouse, you see, loading screen, and after loading screen. So the game has loaded, press X, whatever. And we loaded our next map. In this case, I'm using the free pack I downloaded from the marketplace, because it has stuff and it takes time to load. So just for testing purposes. And okay, let's start. How does this work? Basically, this does not work, or stuff I just deleted, so the primitive method, is because the game thread is freezed when the game is loading. But there is something that the engine is using while the game is loading, that is running on another thread that is not bound to that game thread, right? So it doesn't get locked, it doesn't get freezed, it can still run, and that thread is used by media player. And the media player is actually something that is running on startup to run startup movies. You see here in movies we have startup movies that are run when the game starts, and those are run actually by the media player. But we can't really access that media player from Blueprints, so we have to use C++. And I'm gonna really show you the code. I'm not gonna explain it too much, because it's I'm not too good at C++ to explain everything, but I'm gonna show you how to do that. And what we need is actually a game instance. Game instance is something that basically runs and is active throughout the whole game. So between loading screens, if you want to pass some variables between levels, you use game instance, because it doesn't get reset. And game instance, from game instance we can use the media player and access the loading screen and the media player to play the movies. So to make a game instance, custom game instance, we of course have to go to tools, new C++ class, or if you have a C++ project already, then just I guess you do the same, just new C++ class, right? And pick game instance, pick this, and next, of course, open it with whatever you want, Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio, or Atom. You can compile with Atom, right? So you can. And this is the code. Basically, we have a header file, we have a CPP file, and in header, we include this stuff. This is just a header to my project. This is already included when you create the class, and we need to add core minimal movie player. And I didn't test it, but the resource said to really include it. Also runtime UMG and slate.h. And in uClass, we basically have a normal uClass with generated body. And in public, we want to make two functions, or I made two functions, begin loading screen and end loading screen, which are both Blueprint callable and are native event, which means that I can override them in my Blueprint class. This is something that research didn't do. This is my own innovation to do that, because it is actually quite useful, and I am using an overridden function of that to actually display the end widget, which says that the loading is completed, press X to continue. And then I have some variables, basically a class of a widget that we want to display. And this is just a reference to a class, widget class. Then I have a bool, use movies, because the media player is mainly used by for displaying movies, but it can also display loading screen widgets. So obviously it can display movies, and I'm gonna show you how it looks in a moment. And then we need actual paths to the movie we want to display. So I am exposing an array of strings, and this array takes paths relative to the movies folder. Movies folder is should be located in content and movies. So you should put all your video files you want to play in that folder. It will not be, of course, present in the fresh project. You need to create that folder yourself, and to include the video file in that folder, you don't have to drag and drop to the engine. You can just use the file explorer. You see I have a virus.mp4. I'm gonna show you what it is in a moment. Just drag and drop in file explorer to the movies, and you can use that. And so yeah, that's basically how the header file looks like. And there are some terminals I can close. The other thing we need to do, that is considered configuration of that system, is CPP. Well, this is my name of the project, of course. You will have a different name, .build.cs, and you have to include that stuff. That stuff from movie player, UMG slate, and slate core. Gameplay tags, of course, you don't need, but I was testing gameplay tags, so I added that. Also tasks and abilities, but that's maybe for another video. I don't know. I don't really like gameplay tasks. Well, I like the gameplay tasks, but I don't like gameplay abilities. Okay, so I was testing it and it's meh, I can do. I can make my own system, which is much better than that. So let's continue. We have added the public dependency modules, those 4. And now we can start actually coding. So let's go to our CPP file. First thing first, we have init. Those are 2 very cool delegates, so dispatchers. And those are accessing the very core of the engine that says, hey, I am loading something. Here's, a signal that I am loading something. And here's another signal that, hey, I finished loading whatever you can do now, something you wanted to do when the loading ends. So this is how you bind those dispatchers to your functions. And we create 2 functions. Well, we create an implementation of those 2 functions we made before. So this and this. And one thing you can notice is that I added implementation to the end of the function because I want it to be overridden. As I said before, if I didn't want it to be overridden, I would just delete that and probably add virtual to the beginning of the function name. But I want it to be overridden, so I just remove the virtual. Normally in C++, virtual means that it can be overridden, but in Unreal C++, that it's meant to be used with blueprints, you just add blueprint native event that, and that means that the function can be overridden, and you have to add a dash implementation to the end of the function. So okay, first function, begin loading screen. We check if it is not running dedicated server. And then we need to basically initialize the loading screen attributes, which we call loading screen. Then we set autocomplete when loading completes false. For whatever reason, I don't know. I admit I don't know what that does, but whatever. Resource said to do that and it's working fine, so whatever. And this is basically a check. If we are using movies, then we add movie pass to that screen attribute. Then this is something I commented out, but you can use this instead of a custom widget if you want, but I don't know why you would. This is just a stock widget that Unreal Engine uses, and it's honestly just for testing purposes. It's just an animated thrower. It doesn't do much, and you can't customize it, so I don't use it, but you can. It's there if you want. Then I create a widget. From the widget class we now have here, not here, here. So we have a reference to a widget class, then we use it to create a widget, and it's a pointer. So now we use that pointer to get a widget and assign it to widget loading screen in the loading screen attributes. Then we just call a function setup loading screen with argument of loading screen from the get movie player interface. And that's basically it. This code will assign, create and assign a custom widget. And if we want to use movies, it will also use and play movies that we, assign in our function, in our class, game instance class. Then we of course have another function which is meant to be overridden. And loading screen implementation is just this. I didn't add anything to this in the CPP, but I added in Blueprint. So this code is basically complete. You can compile it, run the engine. It should run fine. And then in the engine, you have to make this is the factory. You have to make a new Blueprint class, which is inherited from your game instance that you just made. I called it loading game instance, but you can call it whatever you want. So you create a game instance with that parent class, loading game instance. I already did that. It's called BP, game instance, but you see it's inherited from that. And since we used useStructs, we can now assign on class defaults the value for loading screen widget, useMovies, and string paths. So that's that. And now in functions, you can see we can override begin loading screen and end loading screen. So what happens when the screen stops loading? I don't really use on begin, but I guess you can set some attributes if you want before the loading screen pops in, I guess, maybe, because you can override it, just call it call to parent function, and you could possibly put something inside, so between the overridden function and the parent function. But I don't think it will necessarily work, because when the game starts loading, this might not execute. Not really. But I mean we can check. But we'll check in a moment. So I'm just gonna leave it like that for now, and just tell you what's next, so we can get through that, not dragging this out too much. So okay, we made a BP game instance, we assigned some class defaults, and you don't need that for now. And you need to go to project settings, maps and modes, game instance class, set it to your new Blueprint class, Blueprint game instance you just made, and that should be all working. And now you actually, when you hit play, of course this doesn't work in editor build. You need to make well, rather you don't need to make, you need to launch it in standalone mode, because it won't work in viewport. It just doesn't work. So if it doesn't, then don't worry, you need to run it in standalone mode. Okay, and I guess I'm gonna show you how it looks with movies, because I have a movie that I added. In class defaults, we can just click use movies. I added my movie. You don't need to specify the extension. And now when we play, the movie also plays. And this system is actually waiting for the movie to complete. So when it does, then it just finishes and opens the widget we want when the project loads, when the map loads. So yeah, that's it. I'm gonna disable it for now, because it's just dragging out the loading unnecessarily. And how I did the onLoaded widget, basically create a widget, add to viewport on that end loading screen, and the widget is just a blur, a text, and an event with X to remove from parent. And you can of course add get get player controller, right, and game only, set input to game only, and it will set the input to game only. You can hide the mouse. So this, and yeah. And if you have actual player character, then you probably also want to get player character and enable input, something like that. But it's just, you know, stretching. If you're making a game, I guess you know what you want to do and how. Okay, so I guess that's it. And last thing, and it's just, you know, stretching a bit, experimenting, and I didn't test it before, so I'm gonna test it right now. Let's make another widget. Let's call it, or actually let's duplicate the loading widget. Control D, loading widget new. And here we're gonna switch a circular thrower with a normal thrower. Let's do 15, like this. Okay, should be good. And now let's test the begin loading screen. Does it do anything? Let's change a loading screen widget. Set. And let's set it to our loading widget new. And then call whatever is going on in the class. And let's see if that changes the loading widget. Because if it does, then it's very cool, actually. Yes, it does. Very nice. Hey, it does. So, hey, I'm fucking smart, man. Nice. Okay. So you can override the begin loading screen, and you can assign some, you know, new defaults if you want. So have a different loading screen for different maps. And if you want to change, I guess you can just have a new event, which is change. I guess you don't have to then use this on begin loading screen. But you can add more stuff if you want. It's possible. We tested it. It's possible and it's fun. So it's long enough, I guess. I had some fun working with loading, understanding how it works and how to actually make a proper loading widget. It took many hours, I have to admit. It took like, I don't know, 10 hours of researching and testing and doing whatever, because if you make a use struct, u property, and you try to use struct that is not exposed to blueprints, I guess you can call it like that. So this struct is not exposed to blueprints. So if you try to actually put it in a u property, then it will not compile. So I had to, you know, find some workarounds and stuff. Okay, I'm dragging, but I'm also ranting. I like to rant, whatever. Hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something today, and I don't know, comment, like, subscribe. Never said that before, but please do. And see you next time. Bye bye.